we've interviewed the last guy. And I said, well, have you lost interest in me or what? And they said, we can get you down here tomorrow. And that's the way it happened, actually. So I had to come in, but spring practice had already happened.
Okay.
And so that first year, you almost is like a wash, you know what I mean? Because you can't do a whole lot when you really don't have a chance to put your system in. You come in right before the fall begins. That's what happened with me.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. My first question for you is, what inspired you to, join an HBCU as a coach?
Well, basically, I was looking for the opportunity that I was at Ohio State, feeling like I needed to make a move. Had been there for 6 years. I had played there 4 years, so I wasn't really happy with the way I was being paid and that kind of thing. So I was looking for an opportunity to upgrade. At the National Coaches Convention, I had been talked with by the Florida A&M representatives about the possibility of being interviewed for the head coaching position. That intrigued me, and went through spring practice at Ohio State. I thought before spring practice that they would have contacted me, but they didn't. So as soon as spring practice was finished, I called them, and the rest is history. They got me down, interviewed, and interview went well, and offered me the job in a short period of time.
So what was that like on your first day at Florida A&M? A little different than Ohio State?
It was, basically what had happened was they, of course, when they mentioned it to me that they would have some interest, I talked to Woody Hayes and told him that if they contacted me, I would be interested. He wanted to make sure that if I entertained leaving, that I did it before spring practice. And I said I was okay with it. I just thought that's the way everybody did it, but it didn't happen like that. So actually the guy who had been released from the head coaching position at Florida A&M was a friend of mine. And I had loaned him some money. So it was a dual call. And so when I was checking on my money a little bit, but then I asked him casually, what happened to the head coaching position? Thought you guys had some interest in me. I mean, I was pretty much certain that they had hired somebody by then. And they said, well, no, we're in the process of interviewing everybody down. As a matter of fact, we've interviewed the last guy. And I said, well, have you lost interest in me or what? And they said, we can get you down here tomorrow. And that's the way it happened, actually. So I had to come in, but spring practice had already happened.
Okay.
And so that first year, you almost is like a wash, you know what I mean? Because you can't do a whole lot when you really don't have a chance to put your system in. You come in right before the fall begins. That's what happened with me. I brought in my staff. We went to work, and we were just glad to get through that first year with the winning season.
So now let me ask you a little bit more about the student aspect of it. In your opinion, who has the best homecoming and why?
Oh, well, I'm telling you now, when you go right to homecoming, man, that's a good one. That's a good one because Florida A&M, I'm telling you, they have one of the best homecomings around. Of course, Ohio State, it's so big, and they've been doing it for so many years at those numbers. I mean, you got that many people coming in. It's crazy, but Florida A&M and and most HBCUs have homecoming is special, and that I think they could compete with just about anybody with a special game like homecoming.
Absolutely. So I'm curious. Do you have a list or some of the more memorable players you played or that played under you, or that you coached with, or even coaches that you can remember from your
Oh
career?
yeah, oh yeah. Some of those guys, they were special then and they're special now. As a matter of fact, one of them just called right there, right before I called the hook up with you. I keep in touch with a lot of the guys, and of course, before I left Ohio State, I had recruited Archie Griffin and coached him for 2 years, and Cornelius Green was that same year I recruited Archie. Cornelius came in as the first black quarterback, and so those were special times. Coming down to Florida A&M, we had the year we won the 1AA national championship. My quarterback was Albert Chester. He was in Las Vegas with me for the induction ceremony, and that was his brother that just called. His brother, a couple of years later, ended up being one of my wide receivers, but he was the holder on our extra points and kickoffs. And I always tell him how special he is, because the year we beat the University of Miami, they tried to hit a field goal right at the end, time running out, just to try to tie the game. They missed it, of course, but Clarence Chester was a special guy because, we didn't fumble any snaps or anything like that. And of course, we hit our field goals, and that's how we won the game by 3 points. But I keep up with a lot of the guys. Anyway, Dorsey Hutchinson, I just talked with him earlier this morning. It's quite a few guys.
Yeah. So this question kind of goes a little bit more towards, the modern HBCU game. I'm sure you've been watching the news and seeing a lot of these, top tier recruits starting to commit to HBCUs. I just wanted your thoughts on that as a coach.
Well, number one, I think Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, they call him now. I think he's really hit a home run by coming to Jackson State, and with the initiative. I mean, that's where it all begins. If you want to try to recruit a player, you have to ask him, and you have to let him know that you're interested. I think he had enough good feelings about Coach Prime and who he is, that he didn't have any problem talking to anybody about coming and being a part of his organization. I just like to give him credit for really getting the whole thing started the way it's going now. And I like the way you introduced it, and I would say current times, because I would almost have to say that back when I first started, some of the guys that are open-minded now and would really entertain attending a HBCU probably wouldn't have done that back when I came in, or you could tell real quick, and it wouldn't be that many who would entertain it when I first started. But I had some good players now. Don't get me wrong. I had some, and I could tell right away. I think Tyrone McGriff was a guy that played for me, played right guard. He ended up his senior year being the last guy drafted, went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, stayed on there for a few years with the Steelers and did well. He could have played anywhere, but because of his high school coach and because of his family, he was leaning towards Florida A&M because he had a lot of people that he knew very well who had attended Florida A&M. So, but you wouldn't have a lot of those guys like we have now. And I think it's only going to get better, with this NIL thing. If it continues to be as big as it is now, I think we'll have more interest. But I think it all started with Coach Prime.
Coach Prime, excellent. And then I guess this kind of goes off. You had mentioned the NIL. What do HBCUs need to thrive, to continue to thrive, going forward?
Well, and again, I think I've heard Coach Prime mention this. What's going to have to happen is, I think the HBCUs are going to have to improve the facilities. because, and they're going to have to create the kind of interest in the program that they can attract the big television money. And I think they're working on all of that. As a matter of fact, I know SWAC conference and the MEAC played in the Celebration Bowl game. But because of the money contract, I think there was $1 million that went to each team, or they decided that game would be more important than playing in the national championship, because there was nowhere near that kind of money in the national championship. So at least they're putting themselves in a position to be able to participate when they deserve to participate. And so they can make the decision, whatever decision they think is right for them at the time. But it's hard to beat that exposure, and it's hard to beat that money if you can get in the position to receive it.
So this kind of goes back to your coaching days, and I think I know the answer because I think we've talked about it before. What is one of your most fondest memories about your time at Florida A&M?
Well, actually, the way it happened, I like to talk about that because it leads up to in 1977. Woody Hayes told me before I left Ohio State, he said, if you go and work your butt off, you take a football program that's at rock bottom, it should normally take 4 years to bring it back if you work your tail off. And 4 years to the day, we ended up going undefeated. And so, and we were working our tails off, But anyway, after that undefeated year, which was 1977, I'm trying to think of his name. It was a sports writer, very well-known guy too. I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, he did an article that appeared in Sports Illustrated, because we ended up being the only undefeated team in the nation. University of Texas was undefeated after their regular season, but they went and played a bowl game and got beat in the bowl game. So we ended up being the only undefeated team left. Now, this gentleman came in and wrote the article. He said, they got a heck of a team. They got good players, but I don't think they could play with the big boys. And I was so offended, but I didn't know where to go with that. I just, okay, one of these days we're going to be able to prove to them, okay? So I really felt good about going undefeated, 1977. But at the last minute, the following year, it was couldn't have been more than a month before the season before we were supposed to start practice for upcoming fall. We were able to get into the new 1AA. And so that was great, because I always wanted to actually play for the championship. That gave us the opportunity to play for it instead of being voted. In 77, we were undefeated, but we were voted the Black national champs, and we did that type of thing. But in 78, by being in the 1AA, all of a sudden now we could play for it. And fortunately, we were able to win it. We lost one game, but we were able to still get an invite to the playoff, and then we ended up winning it. Now, I still had that article in my mind that we couldn't play with the big boys. So the only way you can get that straight is to actually play the big boys. So the very next year, 1979, we ended up being able to play University of Miami. And that was a great game. And so we ended up playing them at Florida State Stadium. So we ended up going down towards the wire with only seconds left on the clock, and we were winning by 3 points. And University of Miami ended up going for the field goal and missed it. And they were going for the tie. And so that was a great experience for me. And it was it had everything. It let us know we could play with anybody, which was our motto. We used to feel that way anyway. But we were able to win that game, and that kind of solidified it, and also let everybody know we could play with the big boys. So that was very special and always will be. And the gentleman who I was telling you just called me a few minutes ago, he was the holder on the field goal that we actually had kicked and got the field goal. And they kicked one later right there with seconds left on the clock to try to tie the game. But the game, we already had hit ours. So I always tell him he's special. He'll always be special because he's a part of history.
I think I just have one last question for you, Coach.
Okay.
Well, what's a message you want to share with the next generation of both players and coaches in regards to HBCUs?
Well, I think what the message I would leave is that we have to think that we can do it, and that was the part, the point that I think was made in that Sports Illustrated article is that nobody really thought we could do it except us. And that's where it all begins. And so I think what's happening right now is that Coach Prime has brought to Jackson State a belief system. As a matter of fact, I think he calls it, I believe. And people are buying in. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to think well enough of ourselves that we can ask the best players to attend our university, and I think once we ask a certain number, we're going to get a certain number, and when that begins to happen on a regular basis, then we're going the right direction. And so that's the message I leave is that we got to feel good enough about ourselves that we can demand the best.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, Coach. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed doing it.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.